دي عمرك يا زين.
ما بعرف بدك تسألني.
Recently, I came over a movie called Capernaum, and it really hit me because it showed the struggles of a refugee kid who was suing his parents for giving birth to him. Philosophers call this antinatalism. They believe that parents bringing a child into the world they cannot provide for is basically wrong.
شو بدك من أهلك؟
ما بقى بدي إياهم يخلفوا.
This feeling is actually pretty common in rural areas where women keep having kids even though they have no income, no opportunities, nothing. But if you look at wealthy cities like Mumbai and Bangalore, it's totally the opposite happening. Birth rates are dropping big time. It's not just you. Nobody really wants to have kids anymore. It's just not a priority, and we are seeing this happen everywhere around the world. And this actually raises a huge question. Why are more and more young people saying no to parenthood? And what happens to a country when a whole generation decides not to have kids? Before we deep dive, I want to show you something. This is a small village called Ishinono in Japan. It has fewer than 60 residents, but when you walk around, it might actually feel way more crowded. And that's because the locals have put up life-sized human-like puppets all over the place. There are in fact more puppets here than people. The villagers did this to fight off loneliness and help themselves get used to it.
でやっぱしお勤めがねそっちの方行きますや、そんなんでおらんようになってしもってせやから私らがそういうふうに言うたんが今月が回ってきて。
Actually, in the last 2 decades, Ishinono has only seen one single birth. And in a tiny village in northern Italy, Masiola, they haven't seen a single child since 2015. In fact, 358 villages in Italy reported the exact same thing in 2023. No births at all. And India, the birth rate has dropped by a staggering 41% since 2000s. All over the world, this is a growing concern. Okay, so it's clear. Fertility rates are dropping. But then, how come the population is still increasing? Let's go back to the mid-1900s when the average woman worldwide used to have about 5 kids. This means a group of 100 women would produce around about 500 children. Half of that new group would have 250 women who would then go on to have another X amount of babies, and so on and so forth. Thanks to this, the population grew from 2.5 billion in 1950 to 6.2 billion by the year 2000. But then, something big started happening in the 1970s. Birth rates around the world began to fall, first in wealthy countries and then in developing ones. But at the same time, the global population kept rising. How does that make sense? Well, imagine a huge train. Even if you stop adding fuel, that train will keep rolling for miles. That's what happened with the population growth. All the children born during the post-war baby boom grew up and had kids too. Fewer kids than their parents, but still enough to keep the world growing. That momentum is now finally slowing down. The UN estimates that the world population will peak at around 10.3 billion people by 2080. And after that, we start shrinking. For the first time in modern history, humanity will enter a demographic decline. And to understand why that's a problem, you need to understand one simple number, 2.1. That's the replacement fertility level, the average number of children each woman needs to have for a population to stay stable. 2 kids replace 2 parents. The extra 0.1, that accounts for infant mortality and the fact that not everyone has kids. But today, most countries are way below 2.1, and this creates a huge imbalance. Think of a society like a pyramid. For thousands of years, it looked like this. a big base of young people and a narrow top of older people. But as birth rates fall and life expectancy rises, the pyramid flips. Suddenly, you have a shrinking younger generation and a ballooning older generation. Economies rely heavily on workers. Taxes come from the young, but spending, pensions, healthcare piles up on the old. That balance is measured by something called the old age dependency ratio. How many working age people there are for every elderly person. Right now, India has a ratio of just 10%. That means for every 10 elderly people, there are 100 working adults. That's perfect for economic growth. It's one of the reasons India is rising so fast. Lots of workers, fewer retirees. But experts predict that this ratio is going to get a lot worse. And when it does, everything changes. Jobs, GDP, tax rates, budgets, and Japan is already living in our demographic future. Their old age dependency ratio is 48%, nearly half as many elderly as workers. Their pensions are draining budgets, hospitals are overwhelmed, and because 40% of voters are over 60, elections are basically decided by retirees, not the workers funding the country's future. But Japan is not the only warning. South Africa currently has the lowest fertility rate in the world, 0.75 children per woman. It means a group of 100 women would have 75 kids. Then half of those 75 kids, who are girls, would have 28 kids, and so on and so forth.
Our society, there is a really strong Confucianism, so the structure is not fair, especially husband and wife. Many company, they still think that taking care of a child should be for a woman, not man. Why we should choose family or my career? I think it's really unfair.
The impact of constantly decreasing fertility rates are felt well outside daily life. For example, the South Korean military is shrinking. Their army manpower has dropped 20% in just 6 years. And that's before the steepest decline even hits. Asian countries are not the only ones that are going through this crisis. A bunch of European countries are dealing with decreasing birth rates, such as Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Norway, and many more. The world is divided into two futures, aging and shrinking, and young and booming. Today, Africa is 18% of humanity, but by 2100, it could be 38%. And countries with young people attract businesses, talent, and global power. Countries with shrinking workforces, they lose it. It's a question that seems simple on the surface, but the answer is wrapped in economics, culture, and shifting values. For many in India, the decision not to have children is driven by uncertainty. Young people are more educated than ever before. Yet, stable, well-paid jobs are harder to secure. Rising living costs make the idea of supporting a family feel overwhelming. In a country where the majority of the population is under 30, the pressure to succeed, to stand out in a hyper-competitive society, often becomes an all-consuming priority. Also, women's roles have transformed dramatically. Opportunities in education and the workforce have empowered them to make choices beyond motherhood. But these advancements have collided with outdated expectations. Many women feel they are forced into an impossible balancing act of being a perfect professional, but at the same time the perfect parent. So some simply refuse to play that game. There is also a generational shift in what people want from life. Previous generations found purpose in raising children. Today, individuals are increasingly driven by personal fulfillment, travel, experiences, or even just stability. In a rapidly changing India, young adults are asking, what kind of future would my child inherit? And if the answer isn't hopeful, why bring a child into that world? All of this leads to one conclusion. India isn't facing a people's problem. The desire for children hasn't disappeared. But until the foundations of adulthood, Affordable housing, reliable income, gender equality, accessible childcare feel secure, more and more Indians will delay parenthood or choose not to become parents at all.